History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
The story, A Man Without a Country, was based on Benedict Arnold, the patriot turned traitor. Yet the British never trusted him, so he died a lonely man without a country. This classic was written by Edward Everett Hale, born this day, April 3rd, 1822. The nephew of Revolutionary hero Nathan Hale, Edward was the editor of the Boston Daily and chaplain of the U.S. Senate. Edward Everett Hale wrote, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I should do, and with the help of God, I will do."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us. We have got one packed program today as we are going to combine our news roundup along with some matters going on as to the state of the church, as we saw a pastor arrested earlier this week for his holding services when the advisory said he should not do that. And so it begs the question, are churches essential? That delves into many other questions because we see abortion centers where they kill life. Those are deemed to be essential. Yet, when you want to save life eternal, that's another issue. Let's quickly introduce our guest here. We'll get into that issue and then more of the news roundup stories. Matt Staver with us from Liberty Counsel, constitutional attorney. He is founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Matt, good to have you back with us.
Good to be with you.
Matt, you have been representing a pastor in your state of Florida. We're going to have you quickly tell the story. And as he does, folks, this is not an endorsement of an individual. It's not an endorsement of a doctrine. We would have some differences as far as doctrine with the pastor Matt's talking about here, but we got to look at the bigger picture here as to the church being under constraint by the state and some of the dictates coming down. Matt, unfold for us the story, because people are wondering why are churches deemed non-essential when other businesses are deemed to be essential?
Yes, Jim, let me begin. This pastor was arrested this past Monday, this week here, by the same sheriff that last week, Thursday, met with the church by conference call. Several staff members, including the pastor, were present, and they were told by the same sheriff that they could meet on Sunday. They gave them what they were planning to do if they were able to do it, and he approved it. And what they decided to do is, what they told the sheriff and what the sheriff said he would do, he wouldn't shut the church down, they could do it and there would be no arrest, is they went in on Saturday, last week Saturday, to thoroughly clean the church from top to bottom. They took out chairs so that it would only be a fraction of the size. They enforced a 6-foot separation. They have a farmer's market. They have a hydroponic and tilapia fish that they actually have. It's a large facility, and they give that out to anyone in the community. They enforced a 6-foot separation, marked it out on the line.
And that was between family groups?
Between family groups. So if you're like husband and wife, you could be together because you're coming in the same car. But if you're not in that family, then there's 6-foot separation with everybody else. And they maintain that throughout every place. They used gloves. They also gave everyone hand sanitizer. And they also then purchased over $100,000 of a high-grade, specific kind of hospital high-grade air filtering system that would be capable of destroying microbes in the air. They even took a sheriff's deputy out last Thursday so he could see the place. Never did they say they couldn't meet. They gave him the opposite. You can go ahead and meet. So on Sunday they met. Then on Monday, the sheriff did this circus of a press conference and publicly shamed him, saying that he repeatedly violated the orders. Look, the order only came into existence last Friday, a week ago today, at 10 o'clock p.m., and that's the order that they were discussing that had just been passed that was going to be effective the next day. It was that order. That's the only order that's we're talking about from the Hillsborough County. And so that has unfolded. This particular church can't just flip off the switch and go to a podcast. It feeds 900 people a week. It provides free diapers. It provides free clothes. It provides free food. It teaches them how to garden so that they can have their own food and fruits and vegetables. It provides free counseling. It has an inner city and urban ministry. And they go into places in the inner city that the police don't even go to. And the police, the same sheriff that arrested him on Monday, has actually told the church that because of their work in the inner city, the crime rate has gone down. You can't duplicate that on a podcast. Mm-hmm. And so in the county where the order came into existence a week ago, 10 o'clock p.m.,
Hillsborough County, Florida.
Hillsborough County, which is where Tampa is, and that's where the church is located. In that county, there's 42 paragraphs of exceptions that you can be under the essential services, which includes Joann's fabric. So you can get fabric if you want to. You can get potted plants at a Home Depot. You can buy a pot. You can buy potted plants. You can have an abortion. You can have all these different things. Then it has a second, well, and also alcohol. That's all considered essential. And then there's a second paragraph after that that says if you don't meet one of those 42 paragraphs, which is a long laundry list, then you can operate with no restriction if you can keep a 6-foot distance. But nowhere does it give even the church the opportunity to even exist. It wrote the churches out of existence. Other counties in Florida have exempted churches, and I can tell you that as a result of this case, it got worldwide attention on Monday. Mm-hmm. The state of Florida on April 1 issued an executive order stating that churches are essential. The governor just today and the Surgeon General for Florida just gave a press conference about this and actually was very encouraging to churches and said, take different precautions and recommendations, but we're not going to close down churches. And the governor says we don't have the authority to close down churches. And the Surgeon General said we need to come together with our spiritual unity of the churches as we're approaching Palm Sunday and Easter. It was an amazing press conference today. And also Texas, Governor Abbott in Texas did the same thing just this week, reclassified churches to be essential. Indiana has done the same thing. Michigan already exempted churches, but I think you're going to see other people thinking through this again. It's not, Jim, for churches that want to close, I'm not going to argue with them. That's their right. That's their decision. But for other churches that really are essential, and this church is providing really essential, not just spiritual, but also physical help to the people in the community, we're going to defend them. And if you can take precautions, you can balance our constitutional liberty against how do we best protect the health and welfare of the people. And the other thing is, do we really want to give some government official the right to write in or out of existence a church, completely write it in or write it out of existence by just the one word called essential? I don't think that's what we really want to do, and I think there's a better way, a more critical way, a more narrow way we can protect the churches and the constitutional freedom and balance that with protecting people's public health and safety.
Well, we know there is much happening all across this country right now, and Florida has now changed their position on this, but we also have, I believe it was this past weekend in the state of Maryland, where a service was interrupted by police for violating social distancing rules.
Yeah, and we're going to see that this week in California and in Virginia. Also, we've gotten pastors calling us from all over the country. Virginia is shut down the churches till June the 10th. June the 10th.
Wow.
Now, churches can't provide the ministry to a single parent or a family that just lost their jobs and they don't know how they're going to feed their children the next week by doing just simply a podcast. We have to understand, and maybe it's the church's fault, when we automatically come to a knee-jerk reaction that churches ought to close because they're going to put people's health at risk. I don't think it's either or. I think we have to really think, and maybe it's the church's fault in part, about are the churches really essential? Can they just be duplicated by doing a podcast? Or is a church community, a body of believers, really essential? So much so that if they closed their doors, the community would groan in their absence. That's really, I think, many churches around the country that are like that. But others, maybe it's time for us as believers to rethink what is church, and is it just a place to go to listen to a message and go home? What are we doing to the community around us? Are we so essential that if we shut down, the community would suffer?
Wow. That's really a internal question every church would need to ask in that regard. Matt, before we move on to another issue with you, for those who are just wondering about this, or how do we challenge our state? How do we get our governor to change that non-essential to essential? Can they contact Liberty Counsel?
Yeah, they can contact Liberty Counsel, and we also have on lc.org a petition that you can actually send to your governor, and I think that has also helped some of these states turn the corner. But especially as we're approaching the two most important days in the Christian calendar, Palm Sunday and Easter, as we celebrate the essence of the fact that we are believers, that we are saved by grace through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, it's going to become more important. So they can go to lc.org. There's some petitions there you can sign, but also you can call us, 407-875-1776, or go to lc.org and you can communicate with us there and get us involved because we can help you. We're getting calls from all over the country now from pastors and people working with churches all over America.
Yeah, folks, again, Matt Staver with us here today. Liberty Counsel was just instrumental in Florida's declaration of this in Hillsborough County, Florida, on this, and saw it change from non-essential to essential. And again, go to their website, lc.org, or call 407-875-1776. And they do have information there that certainly can help, either that of a petition or other means to work with your state in that regard. Matt, something else that we're seeing, and to me it's just absolutely horrendous. I mean, North Carolina abortion facility, we had 4 pastors arrested there despite the governor's stay-at-home order. We have seen abortion clinics that people have maintained that 6-foot social distance that we hear so much about, yet they are arrested, but the person's inside to go in and kill the baby, they're off scot-free. Something's wrong here.
Yeah, and those are considered essential. There's actually, in Alabama, there was abortion clinics were not essential, and a federal lawsuit, a judge who's been very pro-abortion, ruled that abortion clinics can operate. I mean, we're talking about killing children during a time of crisis. That's not essential under any time, but it's certainly not essential under a time of crisis. So you can kill children. You can buy pot in some of these places.
Yes.
You can buy potted plants, but you can't go to a church service and worship. You can't go to a church because it will be closed to get counseling. You can't, on your drive home, as you're weeping because you just lost your job, you don't know where you're going to get your next dollar, stop by this church to get help because the lights are off. I mean, that's the problem that we're facing, and we're giving that kind of authority to a single person as a governor or a mayor of a local government entity.
And the other thing is that we have governmental entities that are emptying their jails, emptying their prisons, some very violent offenders in order. And what do? We put people who stand outside abortion clinics in them.
Look, in the same county, Jim, the same sheriff just released 164 criminals because of the coronavirus. And then he arrested a pastor who actually, his church is instrumental in reducing crime in the inner city. That's the insanity that we are facing right now.
Matt Staver with us from Liberty Counsel. Matt, thank you for being with us here today. And again, give out your website and your phone number to give help to listeners who are wanting to see this overturned in their states as well.
It is lc.org, just LC, letter L, letter C.org. And the phone number is 407-875-1776. 407-875-1776. And, Jim, we have a 2-page Know Your Rights in the Time of Crisis that people can get as well. And you can do that by emailing, going to the website lc.org, or 407-875-1776.
Matt, thank you for that update and for the work you're doing. And by all means, please continue to keep us informed here.
Thank you. God bless.
Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. Again, their number, 407-875-1776. Back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, author and seminar speaker with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, are we making any progress with a creationist view of the unborn?
Yes, it seems we are, Chris, although there's positive and negative steps being taken. More and more people are being educated on the personhood of the unborn child and the need to protect it. Even efforts to clone humans are helping in the sense that there's much scientific evidence now for the unique personhood of the fertilized egg. Unfortunately, this doesn't always carry the day with legislatures and judges, for they often rule that such a person has no individual rights and can be aborted. We yearn for a day when even the courts go back to Genesis for their thinking.
Thank you, Dr. John.
To learn more about creation, get our free DVD called That's a Fact. Visit our web store at icr.org/store and use the promo code FACT at the checkout when ordering your That's a Fact DVD.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America. We have so much information to share for the remainder of the program. Please, please, please stay with us. And folks, it's outrageous. I mean, we have sex offenders who have raped minors being released in response to the coronavirus. That is happening in some states. We have seen a number of convicted criminals freed. Some of these stories are just appalling as to what is going on. But yet, lock up or threaten to imprison those who violate the social distancing or the do not go outside list or whatever it may be. I mean, here's from WND.com where 32 police officers broke up a 1-year-old girl's birthday party. There were about 30 people celebrating a girl's first birthday, and at least 32 Los Angeles police officers broke up the gathering. Some brandishing batons and beanbag guns, responding to a report of a violation of coronavirus social distancing orders. What have we come to? When we can go inside and declare an abortion clinic to be a necessary business, an essential business, where you can go in there and murder the life of an innocent baby and then break up parties for a 1-year-old, you can't celebrate this birthday. It's outrageous what is going on. Here we have from the Hill, the New York Attorney General is calling on states not to restrict abortion access amid the pandemic. I mean, they are going out of their way to be sure that we can continue to kill innocent life by means of abortion. It's outrageous, folks. And I'm going to jump ahead of here a few stories. This is from worldometers.info. Now, they're the ones that are monitoring how many deaths from the coronavirus. And I just want to share with you what I learned this afternoon. At approximately 12:35 Central Time this afternoon, I went to their site to find out their year-to-date 2020 deaths. Year-to-date 2020 deaths worldwide. Worldwide, this is. Do you know how many deaths have been taken from year-to-date due to abortion? 10,885,234 abortions this year. Now, if we're so concerned about death, why are we not putting a stop to abortion in this land? Nearly 10.9 million abortions. Now, communicable disease deaths, 3,324,504. Deaths caused by cancer, 2,103,258. Deaths caused by smoking this year. Now, why are we not banning cigarettes? Where's the war on cigarettes? Where's our quarantine? Where's our social distancing? 1,280,209 deaths caused by smoking this year. HIV/AIDS deaths this year, 430,505. That's worldwide year to date. Suicides, 200. And so what are we doing to stop HIV/AIDS, folks? Suicides this year, 274,619. Deaths caused by malaria, 251,196. Seasonal flu deaths year to date, 124,516. Deaths from coronavirus, 56,987. Am I downplaying the deaths for coronavirus? Absolutely not. I am shouting, though, that we have committed over 10.8 million abortions this year. If we're concerned about death, like we hear from the New York governor, if I can save just one life, then why is he keeping those abortion clinics open? Why is he paving the way for the killing of innocent life in his state? As he continues to rail against the president, I need more ventilators. Folks, what he needs to do is to lock up the abortion clinics. One other note. The number of people infected with HIV/AIDS this year, according to Worldometers, and I use the same site for all of these statistics, HIV/AIDS infected people, year to date, 41,685,305. Year to date on the coronavirus cases, which the vast majority are surviving, 1,074,290. Do you suppose we had to look into what's causing HIV/AIDS and doing something about it? Quarantine? What about 6-foot social distancing there? LifeSiteNews.com, another troubling story here today. The United Nations wants 10% of the entire planet's annual income in funds for coronavirus response. You heard it. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has announced the creation of a fund for addressing the global coronavirus pandemic, and he's simultaneously asking nations to contribute the equivalent of at least 10% of the annual income of the entire planet to a massive, human-centered, innovative, and coordinated stimulus package that could be administered at the international level. Do I need to say the words global governance? The new fund, which he calls a dedicated COVID-19 response and recovery fund, would be given the equivalent of approximately $8.7 trillion, an unprecedented amount that would be 2,900 times greater than the UN's annual budget of $3 billion. Guterres also wants $100 billion for the World Health Organization and to build an interconnected global health emergency system for data, hear that, data, workforce, and supplies. It's not enough to protect major businesses. We need to protect their suppliers and the global consumer demand, the household income that will usher the global economy back to life, writes Guterres in his report. Among the objectives of the plan, Guterres includes attention to continued delivery of sexual reproductive health services, such as access to contraceptives without prescription during the crisis. Stephen Mosier, president of the Population Research Institute, noted that the UN World Health Organization helped to create the pandemic by repeating communist Chinese government's false propaganda. If the clinics in third world countries had been stocked with medicine instead of abortifacients and contraceptives, they would have been better able to cope with the current pandemic, said Mosier. Mosier also rejected more funding for the WHO, noting its complicity in spreading false information about the pandemic. Mosier said the U.S. should cut off funding to the WHO altogether unless its current head resigned. He noted that the WHO receives more than 22% of its funding from the United States. The UN wanting 10% of the entire planet's annual income to fund their coronavirus response. And by the way, the Daily Signal's reporting that the World Health Organization spends twice as much on travel as it does on medical supplies, according to its most recent financial report. They reported in 2017 that the WHO routinely has spent about $200 million a year on travel expenses, more than what it does to fight out some of the biggest problems in public health, including AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. From townhall.com, China has allowed wet markets to reopen. Terrified dogs and cats crammed into rusty cages, bats and scorpions offered for sale as traditional medicine, rabbits and ducks slaughtered and skinned side by side on a stone floor covered with blood, filth, and animal remains. Those were the deeply troubling scenes as China celebrated its victory over the coronavirus by reopening squalid meat markets of that type that started the pandemic 3 months ago. And from WND.com, some 3 miles from the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, Chinese government researchers were carrying out scientific research on 2,000 new viruses, including deadly bat coronaviruses. Washington Times national security reporter Bill Gertz reported several Chinese state media outlets spotlighted the virus research, including Wuhan researcher Tian Huahua, in bat virus work. A State Department official told Gertz the reports about Tian and his virus research are concerning. He's among the small team in Wuhan that has contributed to China's obsession in recent years with virus hunting and research. Over the weekend, some of the stalls at China's wet wild animal markets have begun to reopen and resumed, as we shared that earlier. Troubling stories going on. And also from Gatestone Institute, the coronavirus may be strengthening the determination of China's government to guarantee absolute loyalty from its populace through surveillance technology. Beijing already operating the initial stage of its Golden Shield plan to cross-reference and integrate all local and national records of every Chinese citizen. In addition, the regime uses a system of sensors on the internet through a great firewall to filter out material it considers objectionable. Through this barrier, Chinese citizens are denied access to Google, Facebook, and other sites. The Chinese regime surveillance techniques is the social credit system through which each citizen is assigned a score based on his or her behavior. A citizen can increase his or her score in a number of ways, such as by reading Xi's speech, viewing propaganda films, and participating in Communist Party-sponsored events. Activities that lower a citizen's score includes littering, jaywalking, and demonstrating against the government. Low scores can result in penalties, such as the denial of a person's right to ride fast trains or take domestic flights in China or obtain a passport to travel abroad. Low scores also affect a person's children's university or job opportunities. The social credit system also incentivizes citizens to improve their own score by serving as informants against others. Western Journal reports a classified U.S. intelligence report to the White House revealed China has hidden the extent of the coronavirus outbreak in its country. The officials asked not to be identified or detail the contents of the report told Bloomberg that the gist of the document said that China's reporting on COVID-19 cases and deaths was intentionally incomplete. According to Bloomberg, Chinese officials have revised the methodology for counting cases of the virus and imposed a strict lockdown, causing skepticism of the reported numbers both inside and outside of the country. Well, more is going on there. By the way, China reportedly bulldozing churches and temples amid this crisis as well. Something else disturbing. Did you know that the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, yesterday updated their guidance to address the urgent need for blood during the pandemic? As part of the USDA, I'm reading directly from the USDA site, their article on this issue, their statement, as part of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's ongoing commitment to fight the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic today, the agency issued guidance for immediate implementation to address the urgent and immediate need for blood and blood components. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused unprecedented challenges to the U.S. blood supply. Donor centers have experienced a dramatic reduction in donations due to the implementation of social distancing and the cancellation of blood drives. The FDA has concluded that current policies regarding certain donor eligibility criteria can be modified without compromising the blood supply, they say. Therefore, the FDA is revising recommendations and several guidances regarding blood donor eligibility. These changes are being put forth for immediate implementation and are expected to remain in place after the COVID-19 pandemic ends. They're expected to remain in place after this pandemic ends. Here's the changes. I'm reading, quote, verbatim. For male donors who would have been deferred for having sex with another man, the agency is changing the recommended deferral period from 12 months to 3 months. For female donors who would have been deferred for having sex with a man who had sex with other men, the agency is changing the recommended deferral period from 12 months to 3 months. For those with recent tattoos and piercing, the agency is changing the recommended deferral period from 12 months to 3 months. For those who've traveled to malaria endemic areas, the agency is changing the recommended deferral period from 12 months to 3 months. For those who spent time in certain European countries or on a military base in Europe who were previously considered to have been exposed to a potential risk risk of transmission of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or a variant of it. The agency's eliminating the recommendation deferrals and is recommending allowing re-entry of these donors. We expect that the updated guidance and alternative procedures will help increase the number of donations moving forward while helping to ensure adequate protections for blood health and maintaining a safe blood supply for patients. The FDA will provide notification when the alternative procedures are no longer in effect. Folks, I've got more I'm going to share on this issue right after the break. This is Crosstalk on VCY America.
The New England Primer was introduced in Boston in 1690 by Benjamin Harris. It was the first textbook printed in America. For a century after its introduction, it was the beginning textbook for students, and until well into the 20th century, it continued to be a principal text in all types of American schools. The founders, as well as millions of other Americans, learned to read from the New England Primer and the Bible. The core of the primer is its rhyming alphabet, such as for letter A, in Adam's fall, we send all. The letter G, as runs the glass, man's life doth pass. It also included lessons for youth, Bible questions, and a shorter catechism. A pocket-sized hardcover edition of this 1777 historical reprint is available for a donation of $9 or more by calling VCY at 1-800-729-9829. Ask for the New England Primer.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America, and wow, what a day. I just read portions of the FDA statement that came out yesterday as they have changed their guidance now on what blood that they are accepting. And whereas there used to be a year-long deferral from homosexuals that have been active in their practice from donating, that's been deferred now from 12 months to 3 months, saying that we believe these can all, keep us in a safe blood supply. We had an article that came to us here today from cnsnews.com that reported this. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in 2018, gay, bisexual, and other men who've had sex with men accounted for 69% of all new HIV diagnoses in the United States and 6 dependent areas. But it's not enough for the Human Rights Campaign. They put forth to their mail list today, saying this statement, while this change by the FDA is a step in the right direction, it still bases itself in bias rather than science. This is progress from the FDA, but our work is not yet done, said HRC President Alfonso David. Creating policy based on identity as opposed to risk is irrational, and given the current COVID-19 crisis, it's more critical than ever to prioritize science and facts over fear and bias. Well, let's talk more about that fear and bias, because as Todd Starnes reports, an openly homosexual, anti-Christian New York State senator has condemned Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse for wanting to treat coronavirus patients. Samaritan's Purse set up an emergency field tent hospital in Central Park at the request of city officials. The respiratory unit, which will be supervised by Mount Sinai Hospital, can accommodate 68 patients. State Senator Brad Holman said, quote, "It's a shame that the federal government has left New York with no other choice but to accept charity from bigots." Graham responded, "This virtue is a tsunami that's hitting our shores, and we just need to say, forget the politics right now. Let's work together to save lives." It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And it was also in New York, the editorial, blaming the religious right for the spread of this coronavirus and not being able to mitigate it. Nancy Pelosi has come out and talking about all the people dying while the president fiddles. WND.com evangelist Franklin Graham contends it's House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who should be blamed for fiddling with the emergency relief package and delaying help for Americans and businesses, not President Trump. Pelosi charged Trump with being in denial of the seriousness of the Chinese coronavirus costing lives. This is such a tragedy. We don't even know the magnitude of it because we don't have adequate testing, she added. As the president fiddles, people are dying. Franklin Graham says, I wonder what Nancy Pelosi was doing. It could be said that she was the one who caused delays in people getting the help they need because she was fiddling with the economic stimulus package, trying to work in political agendas and funding for pet projects. And what was she and her people doing when this thing was breaking out in the world? Oh, yeah, that's right. They were holding impeachment hearings. Impeachment hearings. And by the way, those such as Nancy Pelosi accusing President Trump on his failure to act. She has accused him of fiddling while the coronavirus took lives. She was encouraging people in San Francisco's Chinatown a little more than a month ago to join us in a massive gathering. Summit News reported a local TV news report shows her telling people, and I saw the video footage, we do not want to say to people, come to China. We do want to say to people, come to Chinatown. Here we are. Come join us. By the way, CBS News broadcast Wednesday about the shortfall of ventilators in the state of New York. The footage that they showed to their viewers of coronavirus patients used in the story to whip up hysteria about the situation in New York, the footage was actually from Italy. From Italy. CBS correspondent David Begnard voiced over footage of a hospital room full of patients hooked up to ventilators. They lay in hospital beds clustered side by side as medical personnel in serious protective gear attended to them. But the footage was not from New York City, not even from the United States. It was from the Italian city hit hardest by COVID-19. Is it any wonder why the president refers to fake media all the time? Is it a wonder that the American people are not trusting what they're being told by the major media across this country? A news roundup day here today on Crosstalk, and I know I'm a little bit more worked up than other days, but my folks, we got to understand what's going on here across this land and the need for this land. This is a land in need of Jesus. Here's another reason for that. As we see here from the Western Journal, one of the saddest pieces of news to come out of this COVID-19 pandemic, other than the mounting death toll caused by the virus itself, is the increasing number of reports about suicide in the United States. According to KATU-TV in Portland, Oregon, Governor Kate Brown's stay-at-home order is having a big impact on people's mental health. The outlet reports that during a news conference on Tuesday, Portland Police Chief Jamie Resch said calls for threats or attempts of suicide are up 41% over this time last year and are 23% higher than the 10 days prior to the state of emergency, the city declared. Valley News Live, an NBC affiliate in Fargo, North Dakota, reported that FirstLink, the local company that answers the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, said calls have gone up 300% nationally. 300% nationally. Oh, may that be a rallying cry for each individual to say, what can I do? How can I make a difference? And friends, maybe you can reach out to people in your neighborhood. Maybe you know somebody who's elderly or people going through difficult times. Reach out, give them a call. How can I help? How are you doing today? Checking up on them, checking up with individuals in your church. Wyoming governor vetoes a bill for medical care for babies who survive abortions. Let them just pass away. In a surprising move, Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon vetoed a bill to require basic medical care for newborn babies who survive abortion. He's a Republican, says he's pro-life, but claimed the bill is unnecessary. Argued that the bill would inadvertently cause harm. This bill would eliminate the opportunity for a child to pass away in the loving arms of parents, he claimed. By the way, Adam Schiff, House Intelligence Committee, remember him from the impeachment? He's vowing to launch yet another investigation into the administration. This time, he's going after President Trump's response to the Wuhan coronavirus. Once we're recovered, we need a nonpartisan commission to review our response and how we can better prepare for the next pandemic. I'm working on a bill to do that, Adam Schiff said. Nancy Pelosi, I mean, it's been outrageous. We have to find out, what did the president know and when did he know it? Do you see the impeachment starting up all over again? I'd like to open our phone lines here today. Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Yes, the work on the border wall is continuing in the midst of the coronavirus. That is going on. They still planning to have 450 miles completed by the end of 2020. By the way, parents, can I just alert you to something? I need to alert you to something here. And that is that many times, okay, school is no longer operating right now. Okay, kids, go watch TV. Well, the Daily Caller pointed out on March 31st that cable television channels designed for children were tweeting out Tuesday in support of the transgender community. Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network announced Tuesday that they were celebrating transgender people by promoting the Transgender Day of Visibility hashtag. If you're throwing your kids in front of the tube, do you know what they're watching? Do you know what is after your kids? We're going to the phone lines right now. We have Joshua calling in. Joshua, you're on the air.
Hello, Jim. It's good to talk to you again. I'm actually calling because I got an action point.
This is Joshua.
I heard your program on Monday.
Okay, this is Joshua, New Zealand.
I think it's Tuesday, actually, whatever the date was, with Rich Cristiano, where you talked about different stores that refuse to accept cash. Well, we had a situation in New Zealand like that, a pharmacy in Christchurch that refused to accept cash. We called them and made our views known that they should take cash, and we told them that we wouldn't visit their store anymore. That was my call, and my dad called the next day, and they said, okay, well, you can bring your cash in a bag. So this thing requires some pushback. Everything we're dealing with requires pushback with what we're dealing with. The Bible tells us a time of war and a time of peace. Well, the time of war is now, and we've got to fight on our knees and take action wherever we can. By the way, I had another question about the stimulus package that you mentioned on the program, that you said that they had the instructions in the bill for the next time an emergency like this came about. Would you like to elaborate on that for everyone? And just a point, we can't trust the thief in the night. We remember the thief in the night. We can't trust them to give us back our rights after the emergency is over. We have to fight for them now. Yeah. And I'll be happy to take the answer to my question off the air.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for your call from New Zealand and listening by online. Time does not permit me to go through. The bill was 880 pages. I know it put several provisions in that will be lasting. With as much time as I've taken and want to give time for callers too, I'm not going to be able to go all through those items here, but it gives the government additional mechanisms to put into place immediately when the next happens. Matter of fact, they're working on the next stimulus package right now as well, looking at another multiple $trillion stimulus here for infrastructure, focusing on jobs. This is a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. Very interesting, but cashless society, very interesting, taking place on so many different fronts. I'm sorry, I don't have time to go more into the other aspect. I don't have that information in studio at this time. Mark is in Newark, Ohio. Mark, you're on the air.
Well, good afternoon. Yeah, I listened to you about what's going on, and well, with Pelosi and Adam Schiff, I call him DDI, but it doesn't surprise me they're going to do it again. They're not fooling the American public, though. I'm going to tell you right now that a lot of people I know that are Democrats have seen what's going on. They think the American people are stupid. We are not stupid. They see, and they're going to find out come November what's going on right now, and they're going to wish put it this way, they're going to wish he never even been in office, because when it's all over and done, the smoke's settled, never mind.
Okay, got your point here. Thank you for the call. Brad in West Dallas, you're on the air.
Hey, Brother Jim. These state and big city governments running a muck fest that you've got here is really good. What we're seeing is socialism in action at its best. You break up a kid's birthday party, but keep abortion clinics going, and you've got to have contraceptives available. Well, why? If people are going to be practicing social distancing.
Yeah.
Then you got the New York whining about sick people and the ventilators that they've been whining about and the face mask. They run a sanctuary city. They bring in diseased, unvetted aliens. What do they expect is going to happen?
Brad, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Up against a break here on Crosstalk. We'll get a lot of your calls in here in the final segment as well. This is Crosstalk. Tell you what, when we come back, you've got to hear an announcement that came out calling for one world government. We'll tell you more about it after the break.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewradio.com. For nearly 2 years, we've been warning about the National Commission on Military, National, and Public Service. This was a commission put into place by Barack Obama and the late John McCain as Barack Obama was going out the door of the Oval Office. And this commission has spent over 2 years studying, drafting America's daughters. Yes, you heard me right. Requiring that women sign up for the selective service and could be drafted if there's a national draft if they're between the age of 18 and 26. But it's more than that. Hiding under the idea of national service and military and patriotism and civic duty is nothing more than a massive federally funded attempt of brainwashing. Mandatory service, social justice warriors, community organizers, all being trained, and they're calling for national testing, which will lead to national curriculum, and you'll have to do this to graduate. Oh, guess what? It includes homeschoolers. For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House.
I've got to let you hear this 30-second radio clip before we go back to the phone lines. If you remember, Rich Cristiano was with us Tuesday. We're talking about a thief in the night, and we played some of those clips, from the radio broadcast, the emergency session by the United Nations and talking about global government, those kind of things. I remembered we had received an announcement some years ago here at VCY from the World Federalist Association. This was a public service announcement that they sent out to stations, radio, and television across the nation. I remembered it was in our file. I had our team here resurrect the sound. I want to play this for you. Listen in from the World Federalist Association. This came back not too many years ago, asking stations across the nation to play it.
Hello, I'm John Anderson, president of the World Federalist Association. We believe in world peace through world law. How to achieve that law? How to achieve that goal? We believe in an empowered United Nations with the kind of institutions that can give us global governance for global problems. We hope that you'll join us in that effort to help shape a better future for all of us.
Indeed. Could those things be going on under the surface right now? You heard the statement from the UN Secretary General wanting 10% of all the earnings from the world coming to them at the United Nations. Another leader saying that former UK Prime Minister talking about we need a global government, to give response to this. Interesting indeed. And that's why what we saw portrayed in A Thief in the Night nearly 50 years ago be so very interesting. By the way, our phones have been flooded. If you miss getting out on that series, you can call our switchboard at 800-729-9829. We made the full series available on DVD. It's been digitally remastered for a donation of $25. And you can call 800-729-9829 or vcyamerica.org. Let's go to Racine, Wisconsin. Lat, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Jim. I think maybe this Easter, I've been praying for Nancy Pelosi that maybe, she quotes Scripture. I'm hoping that she'll open up her Bible and find out the real God of the Bible and repent to her sins and ask Jesus Christ as her Lord and Savior this Easter.
Amen. Thank you, Lat. And yes, indeed, friends, I don't care if there's an R behind their name or a D behind their name. We need to pray for our leaders and those who don't know Christ as Savior. Let's pray, indeed, that they recognize their sin that the Savior came to take on that sin on himself, paid the price for their sin, and can place their trust in Jesus Christ as Savior. Diane is calling in from Tucson, Arizona. You're on the air, Diane.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm calling because in regards to the abortions, this can actually affect women because they're going into the woman's body, opening up the woman's body, and that can cause infections, and that makes them susceptible and weakens their immune system, so they can get the COVID easier that way, I'm thinking. Another point also about what you were talking about, the children watching TV and all that. Children need mental stimulation, and as it is, it's been a problem already that parents are on their phones a lot, so how much worse can it be being on their phones to watch all this stuff going on and sticking their kids in front of the television? So I just want to say, parents, talk with your children, do things with your children, don't just stick them in front of the TV.
Thank you, Diana.
You're welcome. And one other thing, the president is doing a great job, and people should be praying for him, not criticizing him. So I just want to encourage people, pray for him. He needs all the prayer that we can give him, and the vice president and those who work with him.
Thank you for your thoughts.
And one more thing, Nancy Pelosi needs to watch it. Rebellion is considered as a sin of witchcraft.
Thank you, Diana. Let's go to Marianne next in Milwaukee. You're on the air, Marianne.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for taking my call. I'm concerned about the election that is being set up to disenfranchise disabled people and the seniors by restricting our access to getting to the voting sites. I've got one that's right below me, but if they stop, allowing it to act as my election site, which I've been at for 17 years, it's going to be tough because there's like 230 people here. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if if there's any legal action taking place, movement taking place to block that judge's orders that he has no right to.
Thank you for the call. You're talking about the Wisconsin primary election, which is this coming Tuesday. And indeed, Marianne, we understand that there are election sites that are all being consolidated for this coming election. The best thing at this point is for you to contact your city election commission, let them know your circumstances, and ask what you can do, what they can provide for you. We understand in your situation that they can send an absentee ballot for you to get signed and returned to them. So, but connect with your municipality in that regard. I'm going to squeeze one last call in from Port Wing, Wisconsin, and Tom, you're on the air.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I believe we should challenge all of these governors, mayors, county executives on our constitutional rights. Our states do not have a virus clause in them that says this authority is now transferred to these individuals because of a virus. We still have the right to assemble. We still have the right to liberty to travel. And both these things are being abridged by fines and by forced imprisonment for violating either one of these. Those are our liberties, and governors do not have the authority. The president does by an executive order of the late 1970s, but these other states do not, and they should be challenged. And I don't understand why it is not being challenged.
Okay, thank you, Tom, for that. And I'll say this, that many states, such as the one you're calling from, have put into their state statutes public health emergency rules. And so that's what's being utilized, not specifically for a virus, but that which, when a public emergency is declared, that there has been almost limitless sanctions given to the administrator, the governor. And you're right. That's why there are states that are challenging that, and in some of the aspects of assembly and so forth. And Liberty Counsel is there to let you know what those rights are. There was a pastor who violated that in his community. Liberty Counsel represented that county and that state have now reversed course in that regard. Thank you for the call, and you can contact Liberty Counsel. They have the informational sheet in that regard. All you need to do is reach out to them at 407-875 1776. That's 407-875-1776. They have that guidance that's available. Should be a decision of the local church to be made in that regard, is the position that Matt was staying here today. Well, I've got more stories than we had time. We've run out of time, but thank you for stopping by, listening today. Critical information that we're sharing here on Crosstalk, and trust you'll have a blessed weekend. Remember, spend time in the Word. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from CrosstalkAmerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.